Hey everybody, and I don't normally do videos on Wednesdays. The key reason I don't do videos on a Wednesday is because the shy one has been taking a class for an SAT prep. It's an SAT prep class. And every Wednesday I have to pick her up at her school and come here, and I sit here and I wait for a few hours while she takes the class, because it doesn't make sense to drive all the way home to drive all the way back out here. It just doesn't make sense. We're all the way past the embassy, so it's not like we're close. And this is the only SAT prep class that they have. Once a week, every Wednesday, I come here. Every Sunday morning, we come here. She takes a practice SAT exam. And every Wednesday, we come here and they have the class. Yesterday, I posted on the Facebook page that I wanted to do a Q&A, and for you guys to go ask me questions. Anything you wanted to ask, ask. All right, I got a question from my Brooklyn girl in the Caribbean. She asked a question. We're going to address that, not now, though. But one of the things that I wanted to address is why Homestead? And why do I do this? I've got medical issues. My wife died less than a year ago. Coming up on 10 months since she died. I've got 2 small children and I've got a teenager. Why don't I find a nice little suburban house like I have, where we live now? Why don't I just stay there? Why am I going through the headache of taking this 10-acre property and applying permaculture to it and building a homestead? Why? It's a lot of work. It's a headache. It's, why do it? So I'm going to address that right now. That's the question. Why Homestead? And to me, it's really a surprisingly simple question to answer. And I'm going to start by telling a little backstory. When I was very young, I was very close to my great aunt. All right, my great uncle and my great aunt. Now, my great uncle died when I was in 2nd grade. And my great aunt remained a widow the rest of her life. But her and I were close. All right, as a teenager, she took me to see Beverly Hills Cop. So think about that. We went to see Beverly Hills Cop. And her and I spent a lot of time together. And one time, many years ago, I say many years ago, I was an adult at the time. And it was not long before she passed. I asked her what it was like during the Depression. And she said to me, it was difficult. But we lived on a farm. And we were never hungry. And that has stuck with me ever since. I thought to myself, okay, if things got really bad, what would happen? Now, I'm not necessarily a doomsday guy. I am a Christian. I do believe that there will be an end time. And I do believe that we may be looking into that abyss. However, if we are looking into that, it doesn't matter. A homestead is only going to be a short-term thing because we're all going to buy anyway. The point is, we don't know. Things can go bad, and whether, look at the unrest we see. There's 100 things that could happen. And of those 100 things, God only knows which one it is, or if any of them will. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it'll be perfect. Maybe everyone living in suburbia will live in suburbia and be happy and do fine. But if something happens, I want my children to eat. I don't want to have a problem feeding my family. So if things get bad, I want to be able to feed my family. So because I'm worried about, or because of that conversation, that one conversation, This was back in the 90s we had this talk. This was before Y2K, and Y2K didn't even faze me. I didn't think, I know enough about technology to know that that's not a big problem. But then 9/11 happened. And it got me thinking about some things. And my first marriage collapsed. And then I met my wife, my late wife. And her and I were talking about what would happen. And we were of the same mindset. We need to have some sort of preparations in case. In case of, you know, the United States is $20 trillion in debt. And that's fiscal operating debt. That's not real debt. All right, they've got over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities that they're not even addressing. Just the fiscal operating debt is $20 trillion. That can't go on forever. The refugee crisis. Global terrorism. All right, the threat of radical Islam. These are all issues. And there's 100 others. I mean, solar flares could could do serious damage to the electrical grid. I study nuclear engineering. I know about how electricity is affected by solar flares. A serious solar storm at the right time of day, the right direction, could seriously cripple the American grid. Absolutely cripple it. All right? In the 1860s, there was a solar flare that hit, and it wiped out, literally wiped out, the telegraph lines. Killed, I believe, 2 telegraph operators were killed by electrocution. And telegraph lines have no power at all. But they were completely destroyed by a solar flare. Something like that could wreak serious havoc on the world, could do serious damage to the American economy, and put things at risk. There was a period of time that I drove truck, and as someone that spent a lot of time driving truck, I understand one very simple reality. The food that's in your grocery store will be gone in less than 3 days. So if you don't get more food in your store in 3 days, you're going to have a problem. So, okay, why have I not gone full doomsday prepper then? Stacking hundreds of, years and years of food into closets and pantries and cellars, and why haven't I gone that way? Because I'm not convinced any of this is actually going to happen. My goal is to create a self-sufficient lifestyle. I want my children to know how to get food, where their food comes from. One of the things that really has me, one of the things that has affected me, I have serious health issues. Now, my serious health issues are self-inflicted, as in, they're from my time in the military. All right, so my health issues are a result of my lifestyle at the time. I also was a smoker for years and years, so that's another issue I've done to myself. But I want my children to have the best food possible. And if I want them to have the best food possible, I need to show them how. I don't want to hand it off to some farmer that I don't know, who may do things that I don't like. I don't want to plug them into a system where we're feeding them poison. Right now, a lot of the pesticides in the food that you eat are systemic pesticides, where they literally are absorbed into the plant, and the plant then becomes toxic to pests. This toxin is in the food that your children are eating. I don't want that. So I want to be able to grow what we eat. Now, obviously, this has taken longer than I had hoped. I've always had a garden, or I've had a garden for the last 20 plus years. produced a lot of food for ourselves, for my family, but now we're ready to go full scale. And with all the research I've done the last 5 or 6 years, it took us time to find a property, took us time to get the surveys straightened out because we had issues with the surveys. I did a lot of research. I came across permaculture. I took a permaculture design course. Right now I'm taking the new online PDC, the new Jeff Lawton online PDC. So we're going to take another permaculture design course. All of this is designed to make sure that my family will be able to eat if everything goes wrong. And this stems directly from a conversation I had with my great aunt 20 years ago, when she looked at me and she said, you know, the depression was tough, but it wasn't so bad. You know, we lived on a farm. We were never hungry. If something goes bad, I want my children to be able to say at some point that I want my children to be able to tell their great-grandchildren or their grandchildren or their great-nephew, we lived on a farm. We were never hungry. And that's why I do what I do. Granted, there's a lot of other reasons, but when you come right down to it, if things go bad, my family is going to have food. That's all I care about. All the other stuff is peripheral, and it's nice, and it's helpful, and I agree with all of it. Don't get me wrong, I totally agree with it all. And I hope at some point that property becomes prosperous. But I'm not doing this to make a profitable farm. I'm doing this to make sure my children eat if things go bad. So that's all I got today, guys. God bless. We'll be back tomorrow for more.